Hello.
Oh, crikey, we on?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, put my notes down. Hello.
It's been a long time.
It's been a little while.
Yeah,
Yes.
we've been overdue.
Overdue, is that? Yeah, not half.
But anyway, we're back. Hopefully this means pop pickers. You might get 2 out of us this month if we can manage it. Anyway, we have 6 albums for you. The latest from Elbow, The Takeoff and Landing of Everything. We then have Drive-By Truckers, English Oceans, Pharell Williams, Girl, Kylie Minogue, Kiss Me Once, Real Estate, Atlas, and finally Blood Red Shoes. So we start off with probably the biggest release of the last month, I would say.
You probably...
and certainly if you frequent Twitter, you would think it was the second coming of pop music, frankly, from the amount of love it's received from
a lot of love.
Famous people.
A lot of love out there for
is it deserving of it? That's the question.
You want me to answer that question?
Yes.
All right.
You can go around. You can do it a roundabout way.
Is this where I come in?
Yeah. You can do it a roundabout way.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna obviously state my my insider information, personal interest, members' interest at this point. For those of you that didn't listen to our last Elbow review, yes, despite the accent, I am from Bury or Bury, so that affinity will always be there. So I'll try and get past that. And be past that. Can you hear me trying to be northern again?
I know.
Those were the days. So I'll try and get past that and be as professional as I can. So, Elbow, the takeoff and landing of everything. I liked it.
Yeah.
I found that that there were tracks like the opening track, This Blue World.
Yep.
A good 7 minutes of a warm up into the album there, when 6.5 minutes would have done. But okay, all right. Let's go from the top. Overall, I do think this is a good album.
Yeah.
I possibly think it's one of their best albums.
Okay.
I'm going to go and say after obviously the massive success of the Seldom Seen Kid. We had
Build Rocket Boys,
the one that we actually reviewed a couple of years ago. I actually think this is a much better album than the previous album.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually think that it's got more of that solidity. Hey, that's a new one. To it, more of a consistency across the album. I found that I'm not going to compare it to the previous album, but I found that the previous album sort of kind of lean towards what this one is doing, but still sort of hark back to the Seldom Seen Kid in some sort of way. They have actually ploughed the furrow of this album, and they've done it well. And I actually feel that once you get past possibly track 1, which does go on for 7 minutes, once you get past track 1, I do actually feel that this album finds its groove and is a very good listen. That said, I didn't warm to it immediately.
Yeah.
And it did take 2 or 3 listens before I actually found that I found that this album was gelling, and I found it actually. It's definitely a great. I find it's quite a beautiful album. Yeah, there you go. Cockney's back. It's quite a beautiful album in places. In other places, it's quite sad and melancholy, but again, still beautiful. And overall, I think it is possibly their second strongest album. I have waffled too much. I'm going to pick up a couple of things in a moment, but I'm going to let you go in as well.
I shall waffle less.
Okay.
I also think it's a good record, but I have to confess, and I found this with most of their records, to be perfectly honest. So it's not just a problem with this. Is whilst I admire aspects of the musicianship and the songwriting quality and Guy Garvey's lyrical style, I have this kind of thing where I still get bored, and I find that with this album, as you say, it starts off, and I think This Blue World is actually one of my favourite tracks, actually, although as you said, first couple of listens, I wouldn't have said that.
No.
Because I am just thinking, for fuck's sake, get on with it. Yeah. And they do have, and they always have done, but they do suffer from kind of epic songwriters-itis, as I would call it, which is that kind of need to have things that go on for 6-7 minutes that don't really need to go on for 6-7 minutes, which I think makes them just a modern prog rock band, essentially, rather than an indie band. Yeah. So they're closer to Genesis, frankly, than they are to Oasis, for example.
Okay.
And yes,
they're not Oasis,
I know. but This Blue World I like. I like the Charge as well, because the Charge, if I'm listening correctly, seems to be telling a story of a kind of old pisshead who's not happy that he's not getting the respect he deserves from younger drinkers in his local.
I actually find that either one of us could be singing that song. Actually,
well, this is true. Yeah.
You're ever in that situation, particularly with younger friends, you think that no one really is paying any attention to you. No.
So I kind of like that, and in fact, the first 4 tracks I think are really strong. Yeah. But then after that, I tend to kind of start losing it a bit, and it gets a bit indie pompous worthy. Although I like Colour Fields, partly because it kind of doesn't fit into the album.
Yes.
So therefore does.
Well, the point I was going to make subsequently was, I agree with you. It does dip in the middle somewhere. I'm not so keen on the middle tracks, Real Life Angel and Honey Sun. My Sad Captains. Oh, that's the classic elbow, isn't it? But Colour Fields sort of, as you say, pulls it back up in a way that doesn't quite fit with what follows either.
No. I mean, Colour Fields is quite quirky.
Yes.
Which I quite like, which is why I quite liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are aspects on this album, and even New York Morning to a certain degree, that are a bit Coldplay.
Yes. Is it a conscious uncoupling of your...
Yes, it probably is.
Yeah, your review. No, fair enough. I actually like New York Morning. It has that sort of that sort of that they've done it well. They've done it obviously with Manchester on previous albums. It's that sort of wide-eyed, naive, younger singer-songwriter.
Yes.
Coming out of Guy Garvey's vocal, and I find that's a sort of that wide-eyedness sung, by a middle-aged man. I quite like that. I quite like the possibility that you can still be amazed, and what is sometimes quite a cynical album. I mean, as you said, Charge a couple of tracks previously. And that's sort of like, the world's not listening to me, and yet you still have these beautiful moments where the world might listen to you. I find that very optimistic, actually, in an album which could be categorised as quite sad in places.
Yeah, that's probably true. But for me, and my final thing is I actually preferred. I preferred.
You preferred the previous one. I knew it.
I re-listened to it yesterday, and I kind of went, it's.
I did exactly the same. Album. I wanted to be sure. I thought, I listened to it again. I thought, no, it doesn't quite,
But they both suffer from the same thing, for me, and it's the same thing I'm actually going to mention when we move on to the next record as well, which is, they don't really have that. I'm trying to think what the right word is. Not quite stickability. It's more a
sustainability.
Yes, there's sustainability. Nothing doesn't grab me enough.
Yeah.
So, Beyond Rocket Boys had that as well, where I quite liked it when I was listening to it, but once we'd finished listening to it, and even though I own it hard copy, I didn't really have a great urge to revisit it again, even during the year we were reviewing it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have a feeling I'm going to be exactly the same with this.
No, I disagree. Well, personal taste. I actually think I am going to listen to this album a lot more, and it's not often I say that.
This is true.
This is true. So what's next?
Moving on swiftly along. I move on to the latest album by Drive-By Truckers. which is called English Oceans. It is their 10th album, and we reviewed their 8th record. So we reviewed The Big To Do about 4 years ago, must be. Which was an album that I loved, and in fact still love, and think along with their album Brighter Than Creation's Dark is amongst their best work. However, the album they released a couple of years ago, Go Go Boots, had that feel of a kind of a holding album to me. It was, it was like, oh, this is what we're doing until we get back into full flow. But the problem is, I kind of feel that English Oceans is exactly the same. Kind of feels more like a holding album than a kind of progression of any kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is not to say I think it's a bad record, because I don't. I think it's a good record. But again, it's not one that kind of calls out to you and grabs you like Big To Do did for me, and that make me want to go back. And that's the feeling I get again. I mean, still, they're still brilliant storytellers and lyricists, and it's one of the things I always liked about them when I first got into them, the fact they can tell really vivid kind of stories about America. A couple of examples of lyrics that I really like, the simple lyrics. On the opening track, Shit Shots Count, the line, boss ain't as smart as you'd like to be, but ain't as nearly as dumb as you think.
Yes.
Which I think is just a great
Yeah.
line. And similarly, on When He's Gone, there's the line that she scrubs in basins never clean, it won't wash off the smell of compromise. Which is obviously about a woman who's kind of stuck in a relationship where she both wants rid of the bloke, and also anytime he goes away she kind of misses him, kind of thing. And you've got those same kind of stories. So you've got the disgruntled worker story, story about arson when Walter went crazy, which is a really good song. Songs about political kind of fixers and the part of him, father seeing his daughter growing up, prime coat, stuff like that. So there's some great kind of stories going on. The problem, I think, is that sometimes the music doesn't quite stand up to the storytelling.
Yeah.
And things have a tendency to kind of drift, and so songs start off and kind of then don't really musically go anywhere. And sometimes just kind of, whilst they're not a band that traditionally, a bit like Elbow, don't traditionally write big hooks and choruses, occasionally I think you're just kind of willing them to actually do one every now and again. So When Walter Went Crazy is the song I really like. I also like part of him. Shit Shots Count's really good. The final track, Grand Canyon's really great. In fact, that could also almost be on the Elbow album.
Yes.
Kind of it is that kind of vibe and kind of atmosphere to it.
Yes.
And the thing I like about that as well, you've got the bit where the kind of all the instrumentation kind of suddenly fades out, and you've just got the drums.
Yeah.
And then you get a bit of feedback, and then a couple of instruments come in, which I think is really well done. And it's a song that is almost 8 minutes, but actually is one that doesn't quite feel like that, which is quite interesting. My only other weirdness, is on the track Made Up English Oceans. Every time it plays, I keep thinking of Champion the Wonder Horse.
Yes.
Which is really distracting.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So it means I can't really listen to the song properly. I keep thinking Champion the Wonder Horse. So for me, it's a good record without being one that's gonna set the world alight.
Right.
And I don't think it'll even set the world alight for Drive-By Truckers fans.
No. You've been very critical. I'm not as big a fan, but I actually quite enjoyed listening to this record, and repeated listenings I found paid off.
Yes, it does definitely improve
and it's because it is that lyrical story ability that you've talked about. I have to be honest with you. Yeah, the tunes sort of go in one ear and out the other, and there aren't those great sing along track. You want them really to write a hit. Almost, yeah. You want them to really write a big singer song along that everyone can sing at the gigs and stuff. And I think I said this on the last time we reviewed the 8th album, that it's a band I really want to sort of see live or listen to in a live environment. I can sort of almost taste the sawdust on the floor when you're listening to them, and it loses something in the recorded format. There are also the different vocal.
Yes.
Or
And
vocalist, I
they've
should say.
got one less vocalist now, because obviously
Yeah.
they used to have a female bass
Yes,
player
I
also
thought
used to
they
sing,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's just Patterson Hood and Mike Cooley, although again, it's been mostly been Patterson Hood that's driven the band
Right.
forward in the past, and this is the first time, I think, where they've had equal footing kind
Right.
of songwriter-wise.
Right, because I found that again in the recording format, I found that a little bit distracting. It, in a way, it was almost like, well, it sort of kept such one track, two track, one track,
Yep.
two track. You know, which is what made me think this would work much better as a live album. In a way,
Interesting.
yeah. But I thought a good album.
Moving on,
Yes.
let's get happy. With Pharrell Williams and his second solo album, it's called Girl.
Yeah.
He's really better known, well, used to be better known for producing people and writing stuff with people, I suppose, rather than doing stuff on his own, although he did stuff with the Neptunes and various other things, and has worked obviously with Justin Timberlake, for example, who appears on this record. And last year was hard to avoid him because he was on two of the biggest selling singles of the year.
He certainly was, yeah.
And he's already on one of the biggest selling singles, possibly the song that might end up being the biggest selling single of this year as well. So,
Yeah.
can Pharrell do no wrong?
I enjoyed this record.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, it's the classic review that we give. It is an album of two halves. Once you get past Happy, I don't quite think the punchiness is there. But actually, I enjoyed listening to this album. And each time I listened to it, I actually found it a bit more of the humming was coming along. You know, so I was tapping my feet and stuff.
Yeah.
It sort of wheedles its way in, which is great. I like the. I don't actually mind Happy.
I think Happy's a great song.
Yeah, I think it's a great track for him. It's a great follow up to the other big hit he had sort of last year. And I really like his style. I found it a very soulful album. I actually found it quite a sexy album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Go with me on this,
Yeah.
because we're about to review an album I found very unsexy.
Yes, we are.
So in comparison, this album was very sexy. Did we get a little bit of the old Daft Punk in there somewhere as well?
Daft Punk are on at least one track, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Is it the hidden track?
I can't remember.
Chance. Yeah.
I probably should have made a note of this somewhere.
Somewhere in the middle of the second half, it all goes very Daft Punk, and it's all very summer 2013. But
I think they might be on Gust of Wind, actually.
yes, yeah. Okay, so before the hidden track. Yeah, so Gust of Wind was a standout track for me as well, and Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter's fun.
Yeah, you know, I quite enjoyed that. You know.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a good
I
album.
agree. The first half of the album is quite
Yeah,
fun.
it's a strong.
You know, you've got kind of what you'd expect, really. The first two tracks, so Marilyn Monroe and Brand New, second one being a duet with Justin Timberlake. Both of those tracks actually kind of reminded me a lot of the Justin Timberlake album that we reviewed last year, in the fact that they're both very Michael Jackson-y.
Yes.
But done in a kind of good way,
Yeah.
not a bad way. So it's actually not a slagging off kind of sounds Michael Jackson-y. It sounds Michael Jackson-y, but actually in a good Michael Jackson way rather than a bad Michael Jackson way. As you said, Hunter's then quite fun.
Yeah.
Gush, I'm not so sure about.
No.
Happy is
Definitely.
is happy.
Yeah.
It's fun. You know, it's impossible.
It's a fun
It's
tune.
impossible not to like almost. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And I even quite like "Come Get It, Baby," which it seems to be kind of channeling Prince almost there on that, which has a bit of added Miley Cyrus on it. And as you say, after that, it kind of falls away. And,
yeah.
I find the second half of the album a bit forgettable.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so, despite the fact I listened to this just a couple of days ago, I can't even remember the duet with Alicia Keys.
Yeah, I'm aware of a duet with Alicia Keys, but
So it obviously thrilled me greatly.
Yeah, it does fall away. So the first half quite a strong album, second half sort of lets it down.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
And as I
fun.
said, a sexy record.
Well, it's I would agree that it's certainly sexier than
The next record.
than National Treasure Kylie.
National treasure.
Even though she's not one of ours, she kind of is. She kind of is now a national treasure.
Yep.
With Kiss Me Once.
Yeah.
I love Kylie. You know, in a kind of men behaving badly kind of way. There are a few people that will get that reference. And you know, it's impossible not to like her.
Yeah.
Fact is, the only reason I've watched any episodes of The Voice, if I'm being honest. However,
still laughing at your previous joke.
However, and this is the 12th studio album, and in a way, it's kind of what you expect to get from a Kylie album, at least a Kylie album of today.
Yeah.
In that it's fine, but fairly unremarkable and quite uninspiring. Really.
Yeah.
It's you know, a different producer on every track,
which doesn't help.
Different writer on most tracks,
which also doesn't help.
And as you said on the kind of sexy side of things,
yeah,
there are a lot of songs about love.
Yeah,
on
there's
this album.
There's a lot of songs that mention sex.
Yeah,
but just squeezing those 3 letters into a track doesn't necessarily make it sexy.
And particularly if you call it Sexercise, which is just goddamn awful.
Yeah, it's just goddamn awful. It's about sexy as a damn rag.
As is Gonna Cancel, which is also dreadful in my opinion. But I think most of it's average, so things like Sexy Love and Fine, you know, are fine.
Yeah.
But nothing else. For me, the best 2 tracks on the album are the opening 2, which are the current single, Into the Blue, and then Million Miles, which is actually a half-decent track. And as I said, the rest of it's just kind of...
just fizzles away, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Kiss Me Once, I suppose, is alright. And there are 2 extra tracks, bonus tracks, which I found on a extra special version. One called Mr. President, which was like a bad Britney Spears type song.
Yeah.
Another called Sleeping with the Enemy, which was frankly better than virtually every track on the album.
Oh, really?
So I'm not sure why it didn't make it onto the final thing of the album. And it's, we're not going to harm the sales.
No, I'm sure we're not.
Although I do believe that the opening sales were slightly disappointing.
Yeah. When you think back to the great stuff she was doing about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And before that as well. I've always had an admiration for Kylie. I can't believe I just said that. In you know, in the sort of the different things that she's done, the different. She's almost like the. I was about to say the pop version of David Bowie. You know what I mean? She's almost like the sort of that kind of pop girl. You know, plastic pop version of Bowie. There's been all these different incarnations of Kylie, as there have been with Bowie over the years, and there have been some great incarnations of Kylie. I'm not too sure about this one.
No, and it's not an album that holds together as an album. But then again, it's probably not meant to.
No,
it's probably meant to be a
sliced and diced.
Sliced and diced, I said.
Yeah.
Remixed, so play it in clubs and just have people download the odd track here and there, rather than buy it and listen to it as a record, which is sad, but there you go.
There we go.
Right. Time to get indie.
You give me a sigh then.
Yeah. I know Pete's looking forward to the next one particularly. We go to America now, which is quite
really,
unbelievable.
That makes it worse.
Yeah. We go to New York, and the third album from a band called Real Estate, called Atlas. A band I hadn't heard of before, and yeah. I have a feeling we share some views on this one as well. I'm guessing we don't think we particularly missed out on not having heard the 2 previous albums by the band.
Yeah. Do
you want to dig in and tell people what decade we're in and where we are?
I'm not entirely sure what decade we're in, to be honest. I have to admit, this album starts okay.
Yes.
The first time I listened to it, okay, all right, we're doing some sort of Americana meets the Smiths thing. So it already was somewhere between the 70s and the 80s. I'm not entirely sure, but I like it. And then we get to track 4, which is April's song, which is a little instrumental, which was, you know, I quite like the odd instrumental thrown in.
Yeah.
And then I realised that actually the last 4 tracks have just sort of gone from one to the other, and then the rest of the album just sounds the same.
Yeah.
And I've listened to this record more than once, more than twice, and I still can't tell you much about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I first put it on, it came on shuffle on my iPod, and I actually thought that somehow there was a Charlatans record on my iPod that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, hello, what's going on here? I don't remember this. And then I kind of looked and went, oh, it's what the Spanda are reviewing.
Yeah.
And, it's the Charlatans, Stone Roses, Shed 7.
Stone Roses.
They're all responsible for this band.
Yeah, the early Stone Roses.
Yeah, it's that kind of echoey, slightly dreamy, middle of the road indie that's, oh god,
that's why
drove me around the bend.
I mentioned the Smiths because it's that it starts with the Smiths and it sort of goes on into the later 80s with early Stone Roses work and Charlatans and stuff. No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I mean, I had to hear the first track I quite like. The rest of the album I can't be doing with, to be perfectly honest. It's just all kind of, and as you said, it washes over you.
Yeah.
And I got to the end and I just didn't see the point.
Yeah.
At all. Because I was thinking if I wanted to listen to the Charlatans, Stone Roses, I would stick one of their albums on.
Yes. So that's, but it has that added. I didn't realise they were American because I did pick up on that added hint of something a bit Americana like in the background. Which makes sense now, clearly. But it's just bland.
Yeah,
yeah,
exceedingly so.
Yeah, I mean, not offensive.
Well, I think it is kind of offensive.
I can tell.
by being as unoffensive as it is, it is offensive.
Yeah, it's not offensive, but in my opinion, just a bit. Yeah, shame.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be checking them out again.
No.
To be said. So we finish off in Brighton. With Blood Red Shoes, a duo.
Okay. I'm really enjoying you telling me where these bands are from.
So they're a duo from Brighton, and this is their fourth album. The first produced on their own. The first 3 were co-produced by, with Mike Crossley, who did the first 2 Arctic Monkeys albums.
Excellent. Not that I was going to mention the Arctic Monkeys.
And this is an album that's a bit like, it's going to be a classic when I'm going to go, it's a solid album. But for me, this is a solid album, and as all 4 of their albums have been solid, which is both a good thing and a bad thing for me. One, it's good because it means there's some great tracks on this record, as there have been great tracks on their previous 3 records. However, I'm still kind of waiting for them to make that one really good or great record, and they're still not quite there yet for me.
Right.
However, this album gets off to an absolutely blistering start with a great instrumental piece of noise, Welcome Home. 1 minute 50 seconds.
Yeah.
Get in.
That's why you're on elbow.
Yeah. Yes. Tracks on this album are about pretty much all 3 minutes long. It's brilliant. And then kind of goes on the similar kind of thing. Obviously, there are 2 pieces. So the setup is the now familiar kind of White Stripes kind of setup of drummer, guitarist going on. In this case, the guy's the drummer and girl is the guitarist. Both share vocal duties, quite often on the same, doing different bits of the same track. And when that works well, which on tracks are just Far Away, which is one of my favourite tracks on the album, I think it's really good.
It works.
Also really like Perfect Mess, Behind a Wall. So actually there's a period in the middle of the album that I think is really good. And there's interesting bits and pieces in there. So you get bits of Garbage coming in there, you get bits of Blondie, bits of a few other people as well. And I think overall it's enjoyable. But like I said, I'm still, because I've liked all their albums to about the same kind of level. I'm still just wanting them to kind of push on and, I don't know, get better focused on the songs.
Yes. Around about track 4, I was really reminded of the Arctic Monkeys. although you mentioned that they've worked previously with a producer that worked with the Arctic Monkeys early on. It was actually more the Queens of the Stone Age Arctic Monkeys that I was reminded of.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
point. It was ironically, it's the later Arctic Monkeys that sort of
kind of ran grey smoke, kind of.
Yeah. So no, I did pick that up. I thought, oh yeah, there you go, influence. I have to agree with everything you've said. There you go. That's first for this podcast. I also quite enjoyed Speech Coma. It had I don't know, again, because the female vocalist, it had a real feel of Elastica about it.
There is a bit,
sort of punk kind of feel.
I said that it's definitely that period. Because I said it's that and kind of garbage. On the chorus is very garbagey. Yeah.
Because we've just dissed the band that sounded like the late 80s. There was sort of mid-90s thing to this at times, which I quite enjoyed. This is, by comparison to the previous album, this is a great indie rock album, actually.
And it's very enjoyable. And it is really short.
And it's very short, and there's a lot of variety in between. It's a good record. Again, first half probably better than second half.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Yeah. Last couple of tracks are a bit kind of...
Yeah, sort of... Last track, Tight Wire, is that the quiet one?
Yeah.
Quiet one, yeah, I quite enjoyed that. Very strong start to this album. Feel Your Frustration, I feel like there should be a hit in there as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a matter of, I think Far Away could be a hit.
Yeah.
But, who knows?
Who knows? No, very enjoyable. I'd recommend that.
So, I shall hand over to you for the fun bit here. Because obviously we started our last podcast telling people what our fellow critics have thought of records. So we've been using the Metacritic website to find out what albums have got out of 100.
That's our new thing.
Yeah. So I'll leave you to do the honours on our artists this week.
All right. Elbow. Metacritic score of 81, which is pretty good.
Yeah, just over 4 out of 5 stars.
4 out of 5 stars. Drive-By Truckers 78.
Not far behind.
I think that's fair. Pharell Williams 67.
Yeah,
I'd have put that a bit higher, personally. Kylie at 66.
Yeah.
You know what I think?
Yeah.
Lower. Real Estate 78.
Yeah, obviously lots of reviews in the States giving this a good review.
Yeah, that'd be down there with Kylie if it was down to me. And Blood Red Shoes 67.
Yeah.
Not that many reviews for that.
No, it's probably got the least
number of reviews. More reviews, I think that would push that number a bit higher.
I'd be inclined to agree. So, without further ado, although I'm guessing I know your answer to this one, what's your album of the month?
Elbow. See, that's Northern Loyalty.
Yeah.
Okay, but everyone's going to say that. I do think it's a good album. I think it's it's going to be up there in the list at the end of the year as a great album. Hello. Right.
There was a thing telling me that Kylie Minogue's on at the O2.
Oh, right.
Appropriately.
Appropriate enough. But if I was going to pick one other, because I feel I should for this particular podcast, it'd be a toss-up between Red Blood Shoes and Drive-By Truckers, actually.
I agree with the whole thing of what you just said there.
I'll go with Blood Red Shoes.
Because I would say the Elbow album is probably the best album of the month of the ones we've reviewed just. But what I will also say is, as we move into the 4th month of the year so far, I'm missing 2013.
Are you? Okay. Oh dear. Well, that's another conversation. I was thinking actually on the way over here, I did hear a track from the last Bowie album, which was about this time last year.
It was.
And that was the start of a great run of great albums. So who knows?
Join us next time to find out.
Ooh.
You've been listening to the CTTV Music Podcast.